They slapped a neon orange violation notice on my boat and gave me 48 hours to remove it or pay $500 a day. And when I read the HOA letterhead, my hands went cold because those people had been treating my lake like a private country club for years. I remember staring at the photocopied signature, the smug serif font, thinking they've been using my grandfather's water and now they want to tell me what I can do on my own shore. That's when I decided I wasn't going to let them steal my family's land quietly. My name is Jack Sullivan. Sullivan Lake has been in my family since my grandfather, Henry. Sullivan bought it in 1953. A small cabin, a 50-acre basin of water, a dock with a cracked plank, and a boat the color of old tin. He taught me how to bait a hook, how to read the wind across water, and how to say no when someone tried to take what wasn't theirs. I'd been gone for more years than I care to admit, building a business, walking away from it at 40 because money stopped being interesting, and quiet started sounding like salvation. So I renovated the cabin, plugged in the internet, kept the barn wood, and fixed the leak in the roof, and for a few perfect mornings I thought maybe I'd finally come home. The morning I found the orange notice, my coffee was still steaming on the dock. It said, "Unauthorized watercraft. Remove within 48 hours or face $500 a day. Vessel subject to towing and auction." It was taped to my grandfather's aluminum boat with waterproof tape like a joke, like they were playing at authority. Then, the official letter came Willow Creek Estates Homeowners Association, signed by Richard Walker, HOA, President. I laughed. Then I called Ray Dawson, the old carpenter who lived a quarter-mile down the shore and who'd known my grandfather since his knees still worked. "They've been holding their tournaments on your shore for years." Ray said, his voice like a rasped axe. "Elite anglers, banners, tents, they treat your lake like it belongs to the club." I Googled their website and found photo after photo of people grinning with fish and tents set up on my eastern shore. So I went to their HOA meeting, snuck in the back because I wanted to see the animal in its pens. Richard Walker is the exact kind of man you dread when he smiles, silver hair. Blue blazer, practiced platitudes. When he talked about community waters, I raised my hand and asked plain as I could, "Who owns the lake?" He answered with the kind of dodge that leaves a greasy aftertaste. "It's been under HOA management for years." He wouldn't show deeds. Karen Mitchell, the vice president, watched me like a hawk. Later, I met Gerald Parker, the elite anglers guy who offered me a welcome that felt like a takeover. "We can get you in best spots in the lake." His grin said they'd been running this racket while no one lived at the cabin. The first time my doubt crept in wasn't because of them. It was because of the sheriff. The morning after I found the notice, my boat was gone. A fresh printed notice said it had been impounded for non-compliance, a $750 release fee auction if not claimed. I called the sheriff. The deputy was polite, but his voice had the texture of a man who'd been asked to carry someone else's paperweight. "This is a civil matter, sir. You'll have to work it out with the HOA." That's when the story went from petty to personal helplessness like a cold tide. I paced the dock, and for the first time since I'd left tech, I felt small and stupid. Had I missed some deed transfer? Had my grandfather signed something I didn't know about? The thought of walking away, of selling the cabin and letting them have this drifted through me like fog. Emma Price arrived that afternoon with a duffel bag and the exact calm that a good lawyer reserves for people who panic. She's an environmental attorney, and she unloaded county records across my dining table like they were armor. There was the original deed, clear as anything Sullivan Lake transferred to Henry Sullivan, all water rights included shoreline, to 15 feet above the high water mark. There was a 2010 survey that traced my property lines in red, and the HOA development plans explicitly excluded the lake. Emma smiled with the sort of professional contempt I adored. "They have no leg." She told me not to reply to the letter to document everything to install cameras. We set up motion-sensing cameras that pinged my phone when someone walked the shore. The footage was obscene tense coolers, people doing a tournament on my land, a temporary dock that had clearly been bolted into my eastern bank for weeks. We started building a file, photos, emails, archived HOA web pages, receipts for their maintenance fees that never accounted for any payments to the Sullivan estate. Then, Ray brought the real match. His niece at the county planning office had seen an application: luxury condos, a marina, a golf course proposed for the lakefront. The word holdout appeared in a planning memo, and suddenly the pattern wasn't petty. It was a plan. For a while I teetered between fury and fatigue. There were nights I sat in the dark with the echo of my grandfather's voice. Water is life. Jack, don't let anyone make it a commodity. I started to think briefly about leaving. It would be easier. Pay a lawyer, sell, move on. But then Emma showed me the footage of Richard selling the site to investors, him pointing at my shoreline, saying exclusive access, prime lakefront, like it was already theirs. That was the moment my tiredness turned to ire. If they'd been lying to residents and investors for years, the truth could do more than protect a boat. It could stop a scam. We let the tournament happen. I know that sounds crazy, but we wanted the proof, and people are terrible at discretion when they're comfortable. On the morning of the 15th Annual Elite Anglers Championship, trucks rolled across my property, banners went up, and investors in Navy suits stood beside picnic coolers while Gerald gave them an enthusiastic tour. Emma and I watched from the trees as Richard waved glossy renderings. The investor asked, "Any existing owners?" and Richard said the thing that would end him: only one holdout. But we're in talks. We filmed, we recorded, we made every boasting sentence a piece of evidence. We filed an emergency injunction with the county court that same afternoon, when the deputy and Emma walked into the tournament with the judge's order in hand. Silence fell like a curtain. The deputy's voice was flat with procedure and impossible to ignore. "This assembly is taking place on private property without the owner's permission. You are being asked to vacate immediately." People packed up like a picnic, interrupted by thunder. Gerald sputtered. Investors folded their portfolios and left. Richard's face went from smug to stunned, and then to something smaller, a man reassigning his bravado to panic. That was the climax of everything: the deputy's announcement, the scramble of tents, the investors walking away with their brochures getting soggy in their hands. Richard found me as the last boat was being loaded, his calm finally gone. He tried to barter. "We can make this easy. Sign a short agreement acknowledging HOA management. You can keep your boat." He held a folder like it was a gift. I showed him the deed, the survey, the footage. I said quietly, "You told investors you controlled this lake. That looks a lot like fraud." He spoke of misunderstandings and economic opportunities like they were favors I was being ungrateful to refuse. Then the county prosecutor called. The county had other questions about missing HOA funds, and emails surfaced that tied Richard to a suspicious series of transactions. Within 48 hours, the board was in crisis. Members resigned. The sheriff's office reopened my report. Richard vanished, gone in the middle of the night, reportedly left town. I stand on the dock as people rush to their cars and try not to feel like this is a movie I owe the credits to. It isn't over. Legal things take time, but the immediate danger is defanged. The news runs the story. Residents who paid HOA fees for years stand at kitchen tables and ask where the money went. Emails I'd never expected to see come into light. Gerald moves his name off the local clubs list. Karen, who once brushed me off with a clipped smile, sits in a meeting room answering questions she never thought she'd have to answer aloud. I don't tell you this so you'll clap for me. I tell you this because for 2 days I thought about packing my life back into the van and selling the place. The temptation to retreat is real, and sometimes it feels like the only sane choice when a gang of entitled people with fake authority try to bully you into silence. But when you find the thing that keeps you standing, a deed in a filing cabinet, a friend who won't let you fold a camera that won't lie, you realize the fight is less about you and more about what you leave behind. I chose to fight because my grandfather's memory was not something I would auction off to suits with glossy brochures. The final image for now is Richard's empty office hastily vacated and my boat, the aluminum hull scuffed from years, tied back to the dock where it belongs. The court order bought me breathing space. The cameras bought me evidence, and Emma bought me the legal muscle to turn a petty eviction into a criminal inquiry. I don't celebrate. The board is fractured, and investigations are only beginning. I sit in the boat at dawn with a thermos and a rod and watch fog lift off Sullivan Lake, and I think of Henry telling me to protect the water. That line water is life is the only one I can't let them turn into a commodity. Protect what matters.